Well, a little bit of music, which is a little different to what we normally do on the Biz News radio show, but it's appropriate because it's been a really exciting week. Warren Wheatley, Koshiek Karan, good to have you guys in our virtual studio today. After must have been pretty exciting week, a bit emotional as well. A-Trade being listed on the Cape Town Stock Exchange. I know you were both there because Clive and Stu from our office were there. Koshiek's the chairman, Warren a director. Were you happy with the way things have all unfolded?
Cape Town, the tourist mecca of Africa, now has a fledgling stock exchange, and AltVest is embracing alternative investments on this very exchange with their listing on the CTSE.
Alec, it was a beautiful day, but like all launches, there were glitches, particularly with the brokerage. But there's a saying that if you aren't embarrassed or you don't have glitches on your first launch, you've waited too long. So um, outside of that, it was a wonderful day, very emotional, overwhelming uh, positive response from all our stakeholders, shareholders. The media response was phenomenal, unexpected, and very overwhelming. So from my end, it was a fantastic day, and we're really sorry that you missed it.
Yeah, it was a confluence of events that I do apologize for not being there, but I was with you in spirit, Koshiek. I suppose the big thing here is it gives an opportunity to now just repeat what AltVest is all about, how it's going to be moving forward, because the listing of AltVest itself is ushering in potentially a new era of democratization of private equity.
Yeah. Listen, thanks for having us, Alec. I got to kick off by saying I haven't slept in a week. Um, Self-inflicted. That's how excited we were for the listing. And one of your YouTube subscribers mentioned on the last interview Warren and I were there. And, he said it looks like these two guys just came back from a heavy night out. Um, and now it feels like every day is a heavy night out, right? And part of it is because of exactly what you said, Alec. It's the work starts now, right? I mean, listing a company is one thing. Going and executing and delivering on these opportunities is the second thing. And the market is never gonna remember us for being able to list a company in 18 months, which I got to give heavy and full credit to Warren for getting over the line, taking an idea from what's was written on a napkin and taking it to a listed company. I think history is going to remember us on our ability to take an innovative, disruptive, never done before platform and execute on it. There's a very fine line between being disruptive and just becoming another case study of a failed fintech. Um, we're hyper aware. The press has been great. We've got a lot of good feedback out there, but I mean, you're a media guy, Alec. You've been in this business for a long, long time, and the biggest crime that you can commit as an entrepreneur is to start reading your own press releases.
Mm, mm, mm. Most definitely. It's hard work now. One of the things that I was wondering about: are you going to change your route to market for investors from only being through A-Trade, Warren?
Um, Alec, we want to give A-Trade a fair shot in being developed. So no immediate plans to give additional access points, and that's partially because they currently one of the own they're currently the only broker signed up to the CTSE right now. There are others in the pipeline, and they're going through the various processes to be onboarded. But we're also a majority shareholder in A-Trade, and so it's in our interest to keep that gateway as narrow as possible. However, we dynamic. We'll pivot if we don't get the volumes and liquidity needed to execute on the dream.
So the Biz News community members who are keen, who like the story, who've been following the story over the last 18 months, if they want to invest in Altix, AltVest rather, they need to first of all open an account with A Trade.
That's correct. And many have already, Alec. Our info box has been flooded with queries from the biz news community. We treat them very special because they are, and we must. I must pause at this point. Is that A Trade? We tried our best to be ready for the volume, but we did hit a bit of a a brick wall just because of the volume of people trying to register. So there is a backlog in getting people verified. And I know how impatient you can get as an investor when you've made the decision to trade, you just want to execute. So we have a lot of accounts in limbo, which is impacting the depth of the market right now. And we apologize to your subscribers and to our community, but please bear with us. We're trying to get all the gremlins out of the system so that the execution cycle is as seamless as possible. But we weren't ready for the rush, unfortunately.
But you've delivered. And our last conversation, I remember saying to you guys, "When are you going to list?" And you said it, and you delivered. So, Koshiek, I'm sure it's just a matter of time before you get those gremlins out the system.
Alec, your readers
Yeah,
would have
listen.
seen my tattoos. I had a tattoo done with 0505. So there was no way I was missing there was no way I was missing the 5th of May.
What did that cost you in human pain? I believe tattoos are not easy to.
I haven't had it put on yet. It is designed though; it's magnificent. We also had wine bottles with labels with the listing date prepared,
Okay.
so there was just no way we were missing the deadline.
How long is it going to take then to get everything moving smoothly?
So you currently can trade. The the delays we're having are getting accounts active for active trading. So you can go on, you can register. It's just taking a day or two longer to have your account active, so you can execute on the trade than we would like. Our aim is to be able to open an account in less than a day, and we're doing everything we can to get to that point. But right now it takes 2 or 3 days, and we working furiously to get it to under 24 hours to open an account. We obviously an accountable institution with a FSCA license, from the brokerage perspective. So there are regulatory burdens we have to comply with, and complying with those is the major component of the delay. But we're trying to make it as smooth for our communities as possible. But the system's up, it's running.
Right. So,
It's just slower than I would have hoped it was.
okay. So the business community members who know the story, want to invest, just persevere, get your accounts in, go onto A Trade, register, and in time that'll all be sorted out, and it won't be in a lot of time. But I guess the chairman can give us some insight into your very first listing, because this just unpack it for us, Koshiek, how it's going to work, and that by that way, I'm sure it will explain exactly how the whole AltVest story is going to come together.
100%. Alec, the last couple of months have been brutal, right? Between Warren and I, we've sifted through roughly 2,000 companies that wanted to be our first listing. We've seen everything from restaurants to food trucks, and we even had a guy try to sell us rhino horn. True story. I won't label shame people. But we had the most ridiculous companies approach
Rhino
us,
horn.
and we had some really.
What
Yeah,
was it?
seriously, like,
What was his marketing pitch?
the marketing pitch was, maybe you guys lead it, and I think both Warren and I immediately said, no, we don't. But it's testament to the fact that you can fractionalize anything out there. Anything, absolutely anything can have fractional ownership. But more importantly to us, Alec, is, listen, alternative investments are risky. They're inherently risky. So we don't want to go out there and buy classic cars or wild farms and stuff that's only focused on capital gains. We want yielding assets. You know, we said the last time boring is better on the broadcast. Our first listing is Ugalu Game Lodge, co-owned with Kevin Peterson. I think many of the business community would know Kevin Peterson. You had him very recently, and he did an excellent interview with him, by the way, Alec. And Ugalu Game Lodge, you know, I've had the luxury of staying there and part of the site visit. It was work. People on the broadcast might think I was there on holiday. It was work, you know, it's proper work. But Ugalu Game Lodge is an excellent opportunity in that it's on the fence of the Kruger National Park, houses 12 people. It's ultra luxury, right? It's not the, you know, when you're slumming it out in a caravan or taking a tent with two people and you hear a noise at the middle of the night and you wonder whether you're going to become the next headline in the Sunday Times, right? It's not that kind of outfit. It's proper luxury. What we really like about this is it's situated in Elephant Point. And Alec, we had a chance to look at the properties in Elephant Point, and this is the Clifton or Atlantic Seaboard equivalent of the Kruger. It's absolutely incredible. You know, we saw a two-bedroom house. One of the neighbors to Kevin's place spent 38 million rand on a two-bedroom unit. Right? It's absurd. It's ridiculous. But the property values in that space, we'll give you an example of why we really liked it. In the past 5 years, the average property has increased in value between 15 and 18% in that area,
per annum.
right? With more develop, and that's before the rental dividends and before the income stream coming in, which is another 4 to 6%. So you're looking on the higher end between 20 and 25% a year, right, in returns in this place. And you know, it's a epitome, Alec, of the best kept secrets that circulate among high net worth individuals and no one talks about. You know, it's like you find the fountain of wealth. You don't go out there and tell everyone, hey guys, come in, there's a 20% per annum place down the road. You keep it to yourself and you just rack up those returns. So we're incredibly proud to bring that to the market as our first opportunity. We've already seen massive demand from private investors in terms of placements in the run up to the retail issuance. I mean, Warren can touch on it. And it's testament to just how attractive these type of PE opportunities are, and more importantly, that pent up demand that people have for these assets.
It's so interesting the way that you describe it as the Atlantic Seaboard of well, I suppose Mpumalanga of the game area, and the Atlantic Seaboard cannot be replicated. Talking to the property guys, they say that you want to have a safe bet, that's the place to do it. Is that the same way that you looked at this? It's right on the Sabi River. It's overlooking the Kruger National Park, which is not going to probably ever change that border. So you're buying into something that can't be changed, like the Atlantic Seaboard, Warren.
Yeah. So, Alec, just some other stats that are quite interesting. The neighbor list. Now, I'd love to give who our neighbors are, but we're under strict NDA, and it talks to just how exclusive this club is of property owners. The other interesting fact is that the land there is 70% foreign owned. Again, testament to the fact that it's very exclusive. Um, it's owned by some of the richest families or family offices in the world, and it's a getaway place. And so this talks to our ethos of bringing something that you know people wouldn't even ordinarily know exists, let alone have an opportunity to invest in. And now suddenly, for as little for 100 rand per person, you can be a co-owner in this exclusive investment opportunity. So that when we saw what was on offer, and we saw how impossible it was to get into that circle of people who own land there and own lodges there. We thought it's the perfect first listing. There's a hotel being built, and they are selling units, but the entry points exclude 99.99% of South Africans. Not even the 1% can all participate. It really is high entry points, very, very difficult to get in. Approval processes are required, even if you have the money. So we snuck through the back door, as it were. Through just innovatively coming up with a way to structure our deal, and in so doing, opening up this opportunity to anyone in South Africa who wants to participate in it.
Yeah, and it's been so. It was interesting talking with Kevin Peterson on his motivations for it, and he's very supportive of the whole idea, the whole strategy of AltVest. But perhaps you can just unpack it a little bit more on the numbers. The valuation is 35 million rand. You will buy 50% or 50. Kevin is selling 50% of it. Just explain how the 100 Rand investor is going to participate. How much of that 50% is going to be available to them? Koshiek?
Yeah. So that's a good question, Alec. And I think before we get into it, it's worth noting that valuation is oftentimes more art than science. But we're dealing with retail investors, and we're dealing in a very regulated environment, and that's not the time that you want to make valuation an art, right? You want to make sure that valuation is out there, it's proven, it's demonstrable, and it's valid. So we got an independent valuator come in, and he looked at the value of the land and buildings alone, and he came up with a valuation of 30 million bucks, right? And that is before you look at the rental income stream from Umgalo. We based our increase of, call it, 5 million of Umgalo based on the value of the income streams coming in from the rentals, which is extremely conservative. It's based on a very low occupancy rate in the low 40%. We've seen that the lodge has been very resilient over COVID. In fact, the lodge has been breaking even during COVID, which is something that's absolutely incredible, in hospitality. But to answer your question, how it's going to work is, retail investors are going to be able to write a little check, or they're going to be able to buy a little, a couple of shares in Umgalo. And what's going to happen is they entitled to the economic rights of Umgalo. So, when we get a valuer coming in, and the valuer comes in and says, hey, Umgalo is worth 10% more. If markets are efficient, we know they're not, but if they are, you'd expect your share to go up by 10%, right? And that's before you even get a dividend that's paid out of Umgalo Lodge at the end of every year. So, what you're buying is essentially you buying full exposure into the lodge and the economic streams that come from it, both in capital appreciation and in dividends. And I'm going to say this like sounding like an infomercial, but wait, there's more, right? We've got a community element to this. And what it means is that we're going to be offering a sweetener to the top shareholders. And, we'll make it public exactly what the sweeteners are in the next couple of days and speak about it. But the top shareholders in Umgalo as retail investors will be able to enjoy right of use at a discounted rate. They're going to be able to get certain perks from that will run past Kevin, for example. So what we've done here, Alec, is if you buy stock in Las Pes or if you buy stock in Sassel, nobody comes out and gives you a full tank of petrol, right? You're buying a stock in Sassel, no one comes and fills your tank. But what we're saying is you buying stock in Umgalo, and we'll give you the ability to make right of use a reality. And now most people won't be able to spend 30K a night in a luxury game lodge. But if you're a shareholder in this, we're going to do our best to make the gap between you affording that practical and realistic. So it's a fully fledged, integrated community owned model that extends well beyond equity ownership.
And the 100 Rand, how do you even start to get into a spot or a position where you can become a co owner for 100 Rand? Just, Warren, take us through the steps to get there.
Well, so step one is to open an A Trade account. Um, that's the first thing. So that's the practical mechanics that gives you the gateway to the enter to the opportunities. But then also, from our perspective, we're going to be releasing information to the public over the next few weeks, and those are the prospectus documents. And the key thing for investors to do is to consult, to read the documents in the first instance, and where they aren't feeling comfortable and there's anything they don't understand, they have two avenues. They can consult their financial advisors, if they need explanations and not advice, they're welcome to contact the info at AltVest Capital web, um, you know, information box, and we'll try and help them with explanatory information and not advice. Once that process is done and that information needs to be released to all stakeholders and on the CTSE news service simultaneously, so that everyone has equal access to the information at the same time. That's part of the requirements. But the information, people will have the time to study it, digest it, run their own models, and all the information will also be available on our website in the investment forum section. And and so people would be able to analyze the information, make sure they're comfortable with our valuation, do their own valuations. They could test it. For example, you could Google, game farms for sale. You'll see that this one is very, very well priced, and then make a buy decision. Um, we are also doing a private placement, and we need to. It's not really in keeping with our ethos, but at the same time, we do have shareholders and stakeholders, so we are trying to de-risk every listing until the market depth is such that we don't need to concern ourselves with de-risking any particular listing. But listings in any environment, even on the JSE, are risky, and that's our core business, is making sure that these businesses that we bring are fully subscribed for.
So if I understand correctly, if you've got your A Trade account, you can buy AltVest shares, or you could buy shares in the new listing, Kevin Peterson's Game Farm, and presumably other listings that you're going to be bringing. So it'll be a separately listed entity.
Yes. Well, AltVest is, just to go back to the mechanics. AltVest is like a spec, right? And we will be buying. AltVest will be the true owner, or the technical legal owner of the asset. So we would buy 50% of this company that owns the land and the lodge. We raise funding by creating an instrument. I call it an economic linked note, that there's a legal pass through of all the economic benefits that we derive as the owner of that stake straight through to the investor. So any value accretion in the capital passes straight through to the instrument holder, and any dividends passes straight through to the to the to the to the holder. We also, while they can't technically vote on the shares, we will poll the community and the shareholders for their opinion on how to vote on any particular item, and we'll be doing proxy voting on their behalf. So that's how it would work. So from an investor perspective, if you want little bits of everything, then AltVest share is the way to go, and then you'll get exposure to every single one of the opportunities we bring. And for the time being, we're going to be bringing one per month, and we've got the next 6 wrapped up already. I'm just aching to tell everyone; they're so exciting. But
What sectors? What sectors? Don't ache. Don't ache anymore. Just tell us what sectors. You don't have to tell the names.
Alec, what I can tell you is, the USA is watching us with lots of interest, and we've been bombarded with opportunities from lots of places in the West Coast and that sort of stuff. So lots happening, lots to do. God, if Koshiek wasn't on here,
Interesting.
Alec, you'd be able to convince me to share my screen and
No.
just show you. But I'm going to behave myself.
Warren's terrible at keeping secrets, man. He's terrible.
Okay, but he's keeping a secret now. You have said the West Coast of America, so it could be an offshore entity.
We're going to bring all sorts of stuff to people that can't ordinarily get their hands on. That's our ethos.
Yeah.
We want to, and it's important for South Africans to get diversification, offshore diversification cheaply. And that's what we bring in. But remember, the other side of the coin is we want to also help South African entrepreneurs grow their businesses. So there'll be a nice mix between local and foreign opportunities. But, to get the excitement and the marketing out there, foreign is exotic, it's interesting, and it makes headlines. So there's lots to do, and there's some marketing strategy in that. But every single one of these none of them will ever be a gimmick. They'll all be robust, good businesses that we are proud to bring. But more than that, AltVest, as a principle, as a philosophy, will always co-invest in every single opportunity.
Yep.
So you asked about the 50%. 6% of this will be owned by AltVest, and 43% or 44% will be made available to the public. And that'll be our philosophy in every single opportunity.
Koshiek, you happy with that 6 wrapped up? You'll get one new listing a month for the next 6 months and hopefully thereafter?
I'm very happy, Alec. I think the one point that Warren made is so important. I want to draw that out, which is the ability for diversification. Both, if you look at where the ZAR is right now, I mean, I've always said this: if you have all your assets tied up in South African rands, you're either a really brave person or you're very delusional, right? And both are not good places to be. I think it's imperative that people have the ability to diversify geographically, particularly out of a high risk space in South Africa that we're seeing now. And more importantly, the ability to diversify out of traditional equities. I mean, the last week has been carnage. There's blood in the streets. There's nowhere to hide, right? Whether you buy stocks, cryptos, bonds, I mean, you're bleeding right now. The one benefit of alternative investments is many high quality classes are very defensive over a longer period of time, right? Let alone the outperformance towards traditional equity. Now, that's not saying that there's no risks associated with them. They by far not a magic silver bullet to fixing your stock or your portfolio problems, but it's definitely worth thinking about having some level of exposure. Whether that's in property, whether that's offshore, whether that's in sports teams, for example, just throwing it out there, completely unrelated. But you've got to have that diversification, Alec. And traditional equities for the longest time have been very inflated in terms of valuations. There's been heavy concentration risk. The JSE is a great example, right? The top couple of stocks account for most of the index. And we're at this space where the search for yield extends far beyond vanilla equities, far beyond specific counters within a jurisdiction, and extends to alternative assets and offshore asset classes.
Well, there's your half hour with Koshiek Karan and Warren Wheatley of AltVest, listed last week. Looking forward to seeing the next rabbit that they pull out of their hat.